Welcome back to the podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. And today I welcome Dr. Kelly McCann onto the show, where we're going to be talking a lot of things health today. And I'm really looking forward to diving into hearing a little bit more about what Kelly does to help people in the world with this. So, just a quick introduction to Dr. Kelly. So, Dr. Kelly McCann is the only physician worldwide board certified in internal medicine, pediatrics, integrative medicine, functional medicine, medical acupuncture, and holds a master's in spiritual psychology. For nearly 3 decades, she has guided thousands from chronic illness towards vibrant health and wholeness. So, Kelly, welcome to the show today. Glad to have you on and that we can make this happen. I'd love, first of all, to hear you've got all these awesome modalities. I'm really excited to hear about them, to go out there and help people, live in a more healthy way, more wholeness kind of way. Yeah, where does that drive and inspiration to help people with their health come from? Was it from your own story, someone you knew, or you just fascinated with the topic?
It's a very good question. And thank you so much for having me, Johnny. I'm really happy to be here. Um, you know, I have not always wanted to be a doctor, but I was always really interested in the mind and the body and kind of the pursuit of understanding of who I am on the planet, and what it is that is my purpose, right? So I was always interested in like the mystics and those spiritual people who were walking on hot coals and not being burned and things like that when I was younger. It wasn't until much later, actually after college, even after I did some pre-med work, that I decided to go to medical school. And initially, I was really interested in acupuncture and, looking at things from a more holistic perspective. And my family, my parents were encouraging me to consider medical school, whereas I really wanted to go to acupuncture school. And I said, okay, well, if I get in, I'll go to medical school. And if I don't, I'll go to acupuncture school and I'll be very happy. I got into 4 medical schools, so darn it, I had to go. Um, and medical school was tough. It was very hard for me because I didn't enjoy the framework that medicine looks at the human being. It was, what are your symptoms? From your symptoms, we're going to make a diagnosis or differential diagnosis. Like, what's the list of potential diagnoses that you would qualify for based on all your symptoms? And then what are the tests? What are the things that we need to do to figure out what your diagnosis is? And the whole emphasis was on that diagnosis. And what I realized in my training was, well, conventional medicine never asks why.
Hmm.
What is it about this particular person? What is it unique about this person? Their genetics, their epigenetics, their exposures, their lifestyle, their choices, their beliefs about themselves that set them up to be susceptible to manifesting this whole host of symptoms that they have, right? Big aha moment. And for those of you who have been struggling out there listening, or even if you're not struggling, right, I think it's really important to understand the paradigm of conventional medicine and how they look at things. And the big difference between functional medicine and conventional medicine is really, whether we call it functional, holistic, integrative, it's all kind of looking at this root cause idea and recognizing that there are so many potential things that are impacting us that lead to the manifestations that we're calling symptoms and labeling disease.
Hmm.
And for me, I always loved a good mystery. So when people would show up in my clinic and I didn't have the answers, I wanted to know those answers. I I really wanted to relieve that suffering, right? I don't know why. It was just something that I always wanted to do. So so it became a driving force in, well, if I don't have the answers now and this person has all these symptoms and I need to find those answers to really be of service and to help as much as I could. So that's what I did. I didn't just do internal medicine. I did internal medicine and pediatrics. And then I got a master's in public health. Um, and then learned about tropical medicine because that's kind of cool stuff, right? And and then I studied acupuncture as a medical doctor and did integrative medicine and functional medicine. And so I kept learning so that I would have more tools in my toolkit. When I finished my functional medicine training, I looked at environmental medicine. What's that? That's all the environmental chemicals that we're exposed to and how those impact our health. And then after that fellowship, I realized, oh, I need to learn about mold. Mold is a huge environmental exposure that so many people are suffering with. And then after mold, I realized, okay, I need to learn about infections, Lyme disease, Bartonella, Babesia. These are chronic infections, contrary to what conventional medicine and the International Society for Infectious Disease says is, they don't believe in chronic Lyme. Absolutely. People can become chronically infected and not have the immune capabilities of resolving that infection. Um, and and throughout all of this, I had gotten a master's in spiritual psychology very early on in my practice in 2010. And so that has really colored the way that I see patients, the way that I understand their suffering, and in some instances, really where we need to go in order to help not just resolve the symptoms, but transform the way that they see themselves, not take them back to the health that they had before, but forward to an even better place.
Mm. Sounds like, yeah, you quite a detective. You had like that detective hat on, and the intrigue. You're intrigued around actually. There's something more than just like these symptoms, and I want to find out, and that's what led you to all these different modalities. I'm curious with like some of these things, like with environmental factors that could impact us, and mold you mentioned as well. Yeah, could you tell us maybe a little bit more about what like mold is for those who are really unaware for it and how that can impact us?
Sure. So mold, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about mold is mold that grows in water damaged buildings. So mold grows with water and some sort of food source, right? Usually wood, paper, dust. Mold can grow on just about anything. Um, and in a building, particularly in the United States, we build with wood, and sheetrock is just paper. So our homes are a huge source of fuel and food for mold. Add a little bit of water, boom, you have a mold problem. And most people can see mold when it's on like their shower wall or and or and they clean that up, right? Most people have an awareness that if something looks moldy, they're going to clean it up. What I'm talking about is the mold that's growing behind the walls, under the floorboards, the mold that's not necessarily visible. And some some physicians, some practitioners feel that 25% of the population has a genetic susceptibility where they can't clear the mold toxins. So I think it's actually higher than that, but mold is not just the organism or the fungus. It's actually a combination of things. So there's other organisms that can be in that water damaged area. So different kinds of bacteria and parasites and Yeast, things like candida, can grow there too, as well as molds produce these toxins. We call them mycotoxins that they're using to fight a war with other molds. So the molds produce mold toxins, and that's their strategy for killing each other and trying to gain dominance, right? Because that's what most organisms do is they try and compete for food sources. Well, humans and our pets tend to be innocent bystanders in a mold war in a water damaged building. So these mold toxins can cause illness. Not only that, molds and these different, toxic soup components that are in a water damaged building also can be very inflammatory. They can cause allergies. They can trigger autoimmune conditions. They can cause fatigue. They can cause brain fog. So there's a whole host of things that happen when we're exposed to a lot of different molds in a water damaged building. And some of the studies about buildings are pretty atrocious. It's an older study now, 2009 came out and said that, 50% of homes are water damaged in the United States, UK, most of the industrial areas. And 85% of other buildings, office buildings, schools, department stores, shops, churches, synagogues, etc., they're moldy too. 85%. That's huge. So,
Wow.
so we're really exposed potentially to a lot of different sources of mold and water damaged buildings.
Wow. That is a huge stat, 85%.
I know, crazy, right?
Wow. Yeah. And yeah, lots sounds like, can impact lots of different things. And again, you could be looking at the treat that might be a cause. It could be a cause, I guess. It could be one of
Yeah.
the causes, I guess, if you've got changes in physical or mental health. Um,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Some patients really will have a lot of neurologic and psychiatric symptoms. So, depression, anxiety, OCD, bipolar. I already mentioned the brain fog, but other neurological changes. You can think, there's a form of Alzheimer's dementia that's caused by mold. One of my colleagues was poisoned by mold. She's a functional integrative psychiatrist and had to stop her practice temporarily until she could clean up the mold and clean up her brain because her brain didn't work. So, really, really potentially devastating if you don't realize that that's a possibility or a problem.
wow. Yeah. Huge. You don't even realize like the impact of mold. And like you said, there's the visible mold you can see
Right.
on the shower, but then there's the one behind the walls or under the floors that you mentioned as well. Got to be aware of. Um, do you, in terms of your work, do you look much at the role of emotions on our physical health as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, what happens to a lot of people is, particularly if you have a lot of symptoms and you're going to conventional doctors and they're looking at, you know, like I described, their paradigm. What are the symptoms? How do I diagnose you? And then we know what to do once you have a diagnosis. So many people don't meet the criteria for a diagnosis, which means Western medicine has no answers for you and no treatment for you. And I think a lot of my patients end up feeling gaslit. You go to a doctor, you tell their story, you tell your story, and the doctor says, "Well, your labs are normal, you're fine." And patients are like, but I don't feel fine, right? And that's very damaging and heartbreaking. So, some patients will take that to heart, or some people will take that to heart and they'll just think, okay, well, I'm crazy and there's nothing I can do about it. Fortunately, some people are willing to say, no, I know I'm not crazy. I know something's going on. I don't understand what it is or why, but I'm going to find somebody who can help me. And hopefully, that's the attitude that people take, and they keep seeking the right kind of practitioners to validate their experience and then to provide more hope, because there's no pill out there that's going to fix you, right? If so, mindset is incredibly important. One, believing in yourself. Two, believing in your experience, right? I think that that's really important. And then having hope that what you are experiencing isn't what you have to experience for the rest of your life. So often starting there is essential. And then once you get to the place where you may have help with your physical symptoms. I have patients coming in, they're seeing me because I'm a medical doctor and they have physical symptoms. They might have psychological symptoms too, but they're coming because I'm a medical doctor. And, initially I'm looking at what are those root causes? Is it mold? Is it, chronic infections? Is it another toxic exposure? And we can talk more about environmental chemicals because that affects everyone. But then as I'm doing that, I'm also trying to see, well, how are you how are you with yourself in this process? What is going on in your mind? Is it negative self-talk? Is it I'm not worthy of getting better? Is it, there's a lot of different layers of things. Many times I find that some people who get sick, they're very self-effacing. They defer to other people. They're very apologetic. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Like they'll come in and they'll start crying because they're finally in a place where they feel safe and heard, and they start apologizing. Like, well, stop. No, don't apologize for being who you are and where you are in your process. Like that's you have to be okay with that. I'm okay with that. I encourage you to be okay with that. So there's a lot about mindset, and then there's also about, like, identification. I find people who really start to identify with their symptoms, or if they're given a label and they start to, you know,
Mm,
I I am a mold survivor. I am a victim. I am like I am
mm,
a person with autoimmune conditions. That then has to be deconstructed, because the person who is that disorder, whatever it is, can't also be the person who is healthy and well.
mm,
So we really have to work on how we are with our issues in order to become the person that we really want to be. I think that's critically important.
mm. So almost, would you say, I don't know if I'm getting this accurate, but almost like if you're identifying with I am depression or I am anxiety, it's always a self-fulfilling prophecy to kind of repeat it.
Yeah, a little bit like that. Whereas I have been diagnosed with,
Mm, completely different, yeah.
it's completely different, right? That doesn't define who you are. It's a
Mm,
label that you happen to have right now, but you can lose that label. That doesn't define who you will be. So, yeah, mindset is super, super important in
mm,
the health and wellness space. Um, and it's easy to fall into. Sometimes it's hard to see when you've been experiencing symptoms for so long. We've become really identified with that experience. And it takes time to have that introspection so that you can let that stuff go. And for me, I see complex chronic illness patients. These are often the sickest of the sick. They've seen dozens of other practitioners, and now they're at my doorstep, almost feeling as if I'm the place of last resort. And so I need to get them feeling physically a little bit better, so have a little bit more reserve and resilience in order to start doing that mindset shift, that paradigm shift. But sometimes the paradigm shift needs to come first.
Hmm. How would, say, someone who, wants to be live a healthier, feel healthier, have more energy, they've been maybe struggling with sickness, whichever illness it might be, and they're like, okay, I don't want to identify with this illness or what I've been diagnosed with. They've got that, but they're having a really hard time identifying with being a healthy person because they don't feel like they've experienced that. What guidance would you give to get them to that place?
Um, yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's really individualized. What I
Mm.
found on this healing journey is that it has to be absolutely personal for that individual. And what I mean by that is, there are so many tools out there. The world is just exploding with understanding about our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, and the vagus nerve. So you can go on YouTube and look at all these vagus nerve exercises. You can look at vagus nerve devices. And the idea with the vagus nerve and the autonomic nervous system is um, very simply fight, flight, or freeze, or relaxed state. It's not quite accurate. There's a polyvagal theory that's more accurate, but for our purposes, it's like you're either stuck in fight, flight, or freeze, or you're in relaxation response or the parasympathetic. So sympathetic, parasympathetic. We cannot heal in fight, flight, or freeze. Cannot. It's impossible. If our physiology thinks that we're running from a lion, right? We can't digest our food. We can't be creative. We can't connect with other people. We can't envision our future. We just have to get out of that stress response,
Mm.
right? We have to get away from the lion or the tiger in order to function. So, we can't have this possibility of a future self that is happy and whole and thriving when we're running away from the lion. So, some of the first things that we have to do is learn how to and retrain the nervous system. What does it feel like to be relaxed? What does it feel like to be safe? So there's a lot of languaging in the functional medicine space these days about vagus nerve stimulation and coming back into that relaxed state, that parasympathetic ventral vagal state, and finding that sense of safety. And and that's in the physiology, right? That's in the body. And then there's the limbic system, which is the ancient part of the brain that takes our experiences and turns them into memory, particularly our emotions, and turns them into memory. And we have to rewire that too. So if our limbic system is stuck in this tract where the world is not safe, the world is not safe, the world is not safe, same thing. We have to really work on that. And how people work on the nervous system varies from person to person. What resonates with you might not resonate with me, right? Might not resonate with, you know, all of our listeners. Everybody has their own unique set of things. It's like, oh yeah, that works for me.
Mm.
Meditation might work for one person, whereas that might not work for somebody else. They might need, a different kind of vagus nerve stimulator. They might need a different kind of program. Whatever speaks to you, you put together this compilation of things that are going to help you not only feel better physically, but then gives you the bandwidth to start to really looking inside.
Mm. I like that, making it specific for the individual. For me personally, it's binaural beats, breath work, exercise, may be different for someone else. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, sitting in silence for 30 minutes a day is an interesting one I've been exploring as well. It's not as easy as it sounds. It's
No,
a good practice though. It certainly gets the system after a while goes like, oh, this is all right just to be here. I'm all right. So, yeah, there's all
Yeah.
sorts of tools. I like how you said, yeah, it's individualized.
There's a really cool tool for learning what a calm brain state feels like called the Muse headband. Have you seen these things?
Yeah, I've used it a few years ago. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I kind of like it. So for those listeners who aren't familiar with it, it's a headband that reads your brainwave patterns and is able to see when you're calm and when you're not, and you're listening to a soundscape. Imagine like it's a rain, right? So when your brain wave patterns and thoughts are calm, it's a gentle rain. When things go awry and you're starting to have thoughts all over the place, it sounds like a thunderstorm. And when you have 5 seconds of coherence, you get a rewarded by a little bird chirp. And you can think, oh, okay, that's what it was. Oh, yes, and then the thunderstorms start again. But I find it a very useful tool.
Reminded me when I used it a few years back before, a lot of my nervous system tools and breath work and regulation that I discovered that used to get me very competitive and be like, kind of went against the purpose of it a little bit, I think. But not my brain, you're meant to do that. Like you can't control your brainwaves. I love that.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's really good. In terms of that, I like what you said about the analogy of you can't heal when you're running away from a lion as well, like constantly in that like fight or flight activated state is very, very difficult. And yeah, I guess like things like environmental factors can impact that as well, can they?
Yeah. So our our nervous systems, our immune systems are built to be able to identify a foreign invader, right? Particularly our immune systems. And when we get exposed to anything outside of us that is perceived as a threat, which can be mold, like we talked about, and then other environmental chemicals. Some more unhappy statistics. There are hundreds of thousands of chemicals in the environment today,
Wow.
and we are all exposed. Like nobody gets a pass from being exposed. Um, Most women, when they're getting ready for their day, use no less than 12 products to get ready. Those are all filled with chemicals, and we're putting them all over our bodies and our skin, which is the biggest organ in our body. And so, if you're not choosing healthy products, you're slathering chemicals on yourself. And then we go to Starbucks and we drink our hot coffees out of plastic lids. When we drink hot plastic, we're getting a ton of plastics, microplastics, nanoplastics, phthalates, parabens in our
Wow.
system. And at this moment in time, we don't really have a way to get those plastics out.
Mm, wow.
And they're finding microplastics and nanoplastics in placenta, fetal tissue, brain, testes, ovaries, hearts, everywhere. It's everywhere. They're actually finding microplastics and nanoplastics in atherosclerotic plaque. People who get heart disease and they have clogged heart blood vessels. That leads to a heart attack. There's plastic there. There's metals there. Lead is a huge one. We don't, that's one that's been around for so long we don't even think about it. But plastics are a tremendously impactful health issue. We eat about a credit card size of plastic a week. Can you imagine
Wow. Yeah.
chomping on your plastic credit card? It's horrifying. Um, and you know, it it's impossible to completely avoid it, but we can try, use glass, not plastic. Um, Research your personal care products. Look at what you're cooking your food in. A lot of people understand, okay, I want to eat organic, I want to eat clean, grass-fed, grass-finished, all that. Avoiding grains as much as possible. Certainly avoiding non-organic grains. But what are you cooking your food in? Are you cooking it in a nonstick pan? Are you heating it up in a plastic? In the United States, we have a lot of our vegetables now in plastic bags,
Mm.
like frozen vegetables, which are nutritionally pretty sound, as almost as, not quite equivalent to like going to the farmer's market, but definitely better if you are in a rush. But they put it in a plastic bag that is microwavable. So you throw your plastic bag of food in the microwave and you heat it up. You're just getting a ton of phthalates and all the plastics. Put it in a pan, cook it on the stove. You know, there's just little things that we can do that will really make a big difference in long term.
I didn't even think about coffee, and like I love a good coffee. I've been drinking. I've not been buying recently because I'm very I like being strict on my finances as well, which is a good practice to be in and invest wisely. But so sometimes I'm drinking out of a mug, but I will go to the coffee shop and buy
Right.
my coffee. So
Right.
it's every day like little things and awareness like that, just so like eye opening. That's where you see people with their own special coffee like mugs and things like that. Makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. A special coffee mug. Carry your own water bottle. This is glass.
Oh, yeah, water bottles.
So many plastic water bottles. I mean, if you just stopped using plastic water bottles, that would be huge for your listeners.
That's a good, yeah, that's a great one. So Kelly, there's obviously like a lot you offer people in terms of how to like really be aware of these things because there's quite a few things to think about when we think about our health and then functionally being able to try and stay away from the things that are not going to serve us and get towards more of the things that are going to make us better. So yeah, before we sort of like wrap up, it'd be really useful to know where the listener can find you if they want to reach out, they want to find out more about your work, so you can help them through all this like information and give them some guidance. And is there maybe a final point you want to leave us with today about really owning your health? Maybe something you've shared or something you wanted to add.
Sure. Thank you. You can follow me at Dr. Kelly McCann on Instagram, Facebook, and I do have a brick and mortar practice in Southern California. As a medical doctor, I have to be licensed in the state where you reside in order for you to be a patient. I do have patients who come in to see me from all over the country because I am licensed in 12 different states. So that's a positive thing. And the clinic is called The Spring Center. So you can find me there or at my own website, drkellymccann.com. And I'm hoping, I'm anticipating doing a course sometime in the fall, specifically on these ideas of kind of mindset and looking at our life and our health as an opportunity for spiritual growth and transformation, which I really think it is. And I'm working on a book, but that's a few years out in the future. But I think the thing that I really want to leave with your listeners, Johnny, is believe that whatever you're experiencing, even if you can't explain it, has a reason and may even have, may even be an opportunity for growth and transformation. We think about symptoms as sometimes pesky things that our bodies do that is against us, right? I want to do this. I want to have lots of energy, and my body is tired. My brain is tired, or I have pain. What if your body isn't actually against you? What if it's your intuition and your body being the vehicle of sharing a message from your intuition that says
Mm.
something's out of alignment. Who you are supposed to be on the planet is not down the path that you're taking right now. And there's an opportunity to shift. And if we listen, we can make those shifts. If we don't listen, the messages get louder and louder and louder until we can't do anything else but listen.
Mm.
And rather than going down that path, ask yourself, what is this symptom here to teach me? How can I learn from what this is saying? And reframe how you're thinking about what you're experiencing as an opportunity for growth and transformation, rather than something that is holding you back from where you think you're supposed to be. Instead, it may be guiding you away from where you think you're supposed to be towards where you really are supposed to be.
Mm. Listening to that guidance, that inner guidance, and yeah, really paying attention, which is a very valuable thing to do. I found. So thank you, Kelly. I love that, and thank you for everything you've shared today. Appreciate your time on the show
You're
today.
welcome. You're welcome, Johnny. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.